Let's start with our first agenda point, UDI-World and the worldwide UDI activities in different countries. Patient safety, transparency and traceability are principles that everyone wants to ensure. However, each country is responsible for itself to realize this goal, which means that companies have to adapt their UDI implementation to different authorities with country-specific requirements, criteria and schedules. Therefore, to give you an overview of the current UDI developments around the world, we have focused on these 7 relevant markets for medical devices. We will present you what the latest UDI activities in these countries were and what specific schedules and deadlines have to be considered. The first sales market is the United States. Here, the Food and Drug Administration, FDA, is the responsible authority for UDI implementation. The enforcement of the new medical regulation, which includes UDI product labeling and data submission to the UDI database, started in 2014 and was planned to be completed in 2020. Due to the global COVID pandemic, the schedule has been delayed so that the data submission to the UDI database of risk class 1 medical devices is currently still ongoing. In Europe, the European Commission is in charge for the implementation of the medical device regulation with the EUDAMED database. Unlike in many other countries, such as the United States, the UDI information for the unique identification of medical devices is recorded on 3 levels. In addition to the product-specific UDI-DI and UDI-PI information, a basic UDI-DI is defined to cluster product families. This means that products that are very similar fulfill the same medical purpose and differ only in minor characteristics such as color or size can be grouped together. The implementation of the UDI in Europe is already taking place this May for the first medical devices and is expected to be completed by mid-2027 for all products. Recently, the registration for the UDAMED database has been opened. In addition, the registration to the preliminary pilot system, the UDAMED Playground, is also available, allowing a look at its anticipated structure before the productive database is published. On the Chinese market, the National Medical Products Administration, NMPA, is the responsible authority for UDI implementation. Since the beginning of this year, the first medical devices of risk class 3 are supposed to have the UDI marking and the product information should be transferred to the Chinese Medical Device Unique Identification Database. Accordingly, the registration for the Chinese database is currently possible and the UDI marking as well as data submission of the class 3 products is ongoing. The entire UDI implementation is planned in China until 2026. Our next relevant sales market is Saudi Arabia. Here, the Saudi Food and Drug Administration, SFDA, is the competent UDI authority with the Saudi DI database. Also in this country, the UDI implementation starts this year for the first high-risk products and shall be applied to all other products by 2024. The Saudi DI database has been accessible and opened for registration since October last year. Currently, the UDI marking and data submission of Class D products is taking place. In South Korea, the UDI implementation is more advanced. The Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, short MFDS, is the responsible authority and the UDI data is recorded in the Integrated Medical Device Information System, IMDIS. Currently, the products of risk class 2 are marked and their data is submitted. Accordingly, one should register with the Korean database timely. The UDI implementation in Australia remains unclear. The Therapeutic Goods Administration, TGA, as the competent authority for UDI implementation, published a consultation paper at the end of last year in which the options for the introduction of an Australian UDI system were discussed. Over 90% of medical devices in Australia rely on the CE mark issued in Europe, so it was important for Australia to align their UDI implementation closely to that of the European Union. For this reason, they have an almost identical timeline and are also considering a basic UDI-DI. Nevertheless, these are only preliminary results and still need a lot of time and work. Also, the concept about their Australian UDI database, AUS UDID, is still in progress. The same applies to the UDI implementation in Canada, where the Health Canada is the responsible authority. They have already drafted a rough timetable, which is set from 2023 to 2030, but all other elements for the implementation of UDI are still under discussion. In addition to these 7 markets, we would like to give you a brief insight into the UDI implementation in Japan, Russia, and England. These countries differ in that their UDI implementation is not handled as a separate project, but is implemented as part of broader changes. Accordingly, the UDI schedule is intermingled with other regulations and cannot be treated separately without including the related other regulations. Nonetheless, on this slide, you will see the relevant regulatory authorities for UDI implementation in these countries, the comprehensive plan that includes the UDI implementation, and the current status of realization.